You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings. Great deal going on. $5 down on a NCAA tournament game. And if you're a new customer, you get $200 in free plays. I would suggest backing the A against whoever they play, Bryant or whoever. But you know what? There's also another game in town, and not many, and a lot of people might be quick to forget last year's Arizona women's basketball team this close away from claiming the national championship. So what better guy to have on here than the voice of the women's basketball team, the big dog, the giant, the man, Brody Dryden. Hello, Coyote Brody.
Hey, Mike, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
All right, so fill me in right. All right, so it's been a little bit. It feels like the women have now been off for feels like about a month or so. Excuse me. So Arizona playing UNLV this week. So what and obviously getting to host as well. That's got to be something that they're digging, though, being able to host at home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's only the second time in program history that Arizona's been able to host the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament. So it's a huge honor, huge advantage. Obviously, not every program for women's basketball or around the country, even if they do host, are going to pull a crowd like Arizona will this Saturday in the opening game. So, it's something different, unique that, in the men's tournament, Arizona's got to travel to San Diego. Now, there's probably going to be a good amount of fans that make that trip over to San Diego. Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a good amount of people that go there, but with the women's tournament, they don't do the neutral site for those first two rounds. It's the highest seed that hosts. So a huge advantage for Arizona. It should be a great atmosphere. I mean, you look back a couple years ago. Before the COVID year when the NCAA tournament was canceled and Arizona was definitely going to make it, going to host, likely, we'd never know because of COVID. But before that, in the WNIT run, I mean, that's when the sellouts were. Some of the biggest crowds in program history showed up to McHale just for the WNIT run. So it should be, big crowds, a fun time. And UNLV is a good team, so it should be a good game as well.
There's a lot to break down in here. UNLV is fascinating because they haven't been in the tournament in about 20 years or so. This is and you look at it, and this is a team that they ran through 26-6, 15-3 in their in the Mountain West Conference. They haven't played anybody like Arizona this year, though. So, excuse me. That to me is a little bit of a double-edged sword there, Brody. Because, yes, they haven't played anybody like Arizona. So, but you also don't know how high they're capable of elevating their game because they haven't played anybody. Conversely, it's also hard to believe, though, that you can really recreate and practice what you're going to be going against with this Arizona basketball team.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few storylines going into this one from UNLV. One of them, Lindy LaRocque, is the head coach at UNLV. She was just hired in 2020 after.
Did she come from a good program, Brody?
Yeah, she came from Stanford. So, she's familiar with Arizona. She's familiar with the Pac-12 landscape. And like you said, it's been 20 years since UNLV made the NCAA tournament. So she's really turned things around. She's back in her hometown. She's from Las Vegas. The Rebels, they've won the regular season championship of the Mountain West, and then they went ahead and won the Mountain West tournament in the postseason as well. So this is a really good team. They've got a good record, but there are also some question marks because they've got 6 losses, and I'm still diving into my homework, and one of them is over 20 points. They lost to Northern Arizona.
That was the head scratcher that I saw as well.
Yeah, and there are some other losses here and there that it happens to every team, but I'm still diving into what happened there. But they've really picked things up through their conference season, obviously winning the Mountain West and their postseason tournament as well. But it's March. There's a reason that they are a much lower seed, and they're the 13th seed taking on Arizona that's number 4. But it's March. Anything can happen. Even though they're a smaller school, they come from a smaller conference. They're definitely a qualified team.
Yeah, and Brody, the thing that also steps out, this is a team that's scoring 75 points a game. I mean, they like to get up and down, and Arizona's obviously been able to hang its hat on defense for a good percentage of the season right there. So something's going to have to give right there. I know a lot of people might be saying, "Yeah, no duh, Mike," but that was something that I noticed in the stats as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's Essence Booker and Desiree Young as the two leading scorers for
Mhm.
UNLV. So those are the people you're going to need to listen out for. And you can't really find a lot of games that they didn't score in double digits. They're kind of the dynamic duo down there. Not to mention another storyline, Jade Thomas, Sam Thomas's sister,
Mhm.
who's on the roster. She hasn't been playing as much of late. She's a sophomore, and we'll see what happens with her, but that's still just another wrinkle in this
You want
game.
another wrinkle? You want another wrinkle there, big dog?
Sure,
All
yeah,
right.
why not?
There's also somebody on UNLV from my high school alma mater, Saguaro High School, right there. Alyssa Brown,
Oh,
who's a freshman, who was state player of the year last year.
there we
So
go.
Alyssa Brown is taller than me. She's better at basketball than I ever was. But you know what? I figured that I might give that to you. Maybe you sprinkle that in your notes and give a little bit of East Side Tucson love right there, Brody.
Oh, there will absolutely. I'll sprinkle that in there for
It
sure.
better.
But really, up and down this roster, that's the thing. They can score. They know how to shoot the ball. But again, Arizona is just a different caliber of defense. So we'll see what happens. We saw in the Pac-12 tournament. The last game Arizona played against Colorado, it was like basically a defensive gridlock. It was a total of 88 points scored between the two teams, and Colorado just got them at
Right.
the end of the game. So Arizona's that's the one nice thing, I suppose. You didn't want to see them get bounced in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament, but that did give them this very prolonged break to maybe catch up with themselves, practice some more. Katereese is looking like she's coming back healthy as can be, and so maybe it's one of those necessary gut checks that happens for a reason.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Katereese on the other side. But Brody mentioned a different caliber of player. Allow me to tell you about a different caliber of sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. All right, here's the deal. Throw down $5 on the NCAA tournament games you got coming up here, and $200 in free plays if your team wins. And it doesn't matter who you pick. Arizona is going to be probably playing some school like Bryant. You know what? I like Arizona to be the 1 seed that is not upset by the 16 seed right there. I would go with them. Eligibility restrictions apply. Arizona only. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Eligibility restrictions do apply. All right, Brody. Now, let's get back to some Arizona basketball. You mentioned Katereese. That is kind of the question that everybody is asking. How's Kate going to do? Everybody knows leading scorer, kind of your go-to player offensively. Went down with an injury. Where do we stand with her? Do we know?
Yeah, she actually came by the Adia Barnes radio show last week. By the way, that's
By
going
the way,
on
where can you
tonight.
find the Adia Barnes radio show, and who can you find hosting it?
Yeah, it's going to be me hosting it. We've got our final show tonight at Flores Market Run out on 6th Street, Tucson Boulevard. And if you can't make it out to Flores, we'll be on 1400 KTUC. But yeah, final one is a special NCAA tournament edition of that one. And Katereese came on and announced herself that she, is feeling good. She's back to practicing shooting, and she should be good to go. You can never rule anything out. Something happens or whatever in between then and the UNLV game. But as it looks right now, Katereese will be good to go, and she's just so important to this team. I mean, you see it. She went down in the Washington State game in that final road trip, and Arizona ended up losing that game by 5. We're in crunch time. They really could have used her. The next game when Arizona played their first full game against UCLA without her, the Bruins, gave Arizona their first loss in McHale all season long, and it was a tough game for them. But I think that was also a game that Arizona really learned a lot about themselves, and kind of different players, leaned on different abilities, and kind of got used to playing without her. Came back, won against USC, but you still see on the Pac-12 tournament, if Katereese was out on the floor against Colorado, Arizona I'd say probably would have won. So she means a great deal to this team. That didn't affect Arizona getting into the tournament or whatever. So now that she will be back, as it looks like for the UNLV game, look at her to be making a big impact.
Brody, and I think people kind of forget the importance of that, because I think a lot of times people look at, these assembly line schools, for lack of a better term, a UConn, or a, men's college basketball, like a Duke or whatever. And they say, oh, you lost an 18-point a game score, next person up. That sounds cool. But I mean, you don't just replace somebody like Katereese. It's not like Adia Barnes has this magic wand where she says, all right, listen, I'm going to need everybody else to score 4 more points a game. Or, you know what, Sam, I know you're the best defensive player in the country. I also need to be able to put up 18 or I also need you to be able to put up 18, 19 points a game as well. That's just not what players are necessarily all about here. And when you start asking people to go outside of their comfort zone, sure, some can, but it's just impossible, in my opinion, from an outsider perspective, to be able to look at stuff like that there, Brody, and say, yeah, just go ahead. Just, we can replace that. You really can't.
No, it's incredibly difficult to do. And that's one thing where you kind of play teams for, the second time around in the Pac-12 schedule. They're familiar opponents. They kind of know the strengths, the weaknesses. And it's almost like, Arizona started out so strong, especially in that first half. And then when you come back and Arizona doesn't have Katereese, they're like, oh my goodness, this makes it so much easier for us, because she really did have that presence down there. And it wasn't just Kate dealing with injuries. Lauren Ware did step up, and she had a double there at the end of the season, and she's done a good job filling some of that void. But you do also just need somebody else to step into that role. And Araya Copeland was out with and trying to work back after she had her migraines and stuff, and she did finally get back. But it's still just so hard to replace a talent like Kate.
Brody, when you go into the game, and again, I don't know, like I said, you're far more professional than I am, because I know that you go through all the details. You go through, I'm sure you have outlined everything. But let me ask you this: when you go into Arizona games, is there an X factor for this team? Is there is there one player that when you're watching them either in practice or up close that you say, if so-and-so plays well, or if so-and-so really plays good defense, this is a really, really difficult team to beat, on top of already being a difficult team to beat?
Yeah, I'm certainly not the first person to say this, but I think for Arizona, that's Coy Love.
I knew you were going to go there. That was going to be my follow-up, but go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. Transfer from Vanderbilt, and she's just made such an impact this season, offensively, defensively. I mean, you look at her numbers, and it seems like she's come close to either a double-double or triple-double each time she's gotten substantial minutes. You go back to the beginning of the Pac-12 season, and she kind of wasn't getting very much time coming off the bench, and she sat actually the entire Oregon State game up in Corvallis, then came in against Oregon, made a good impact, and it just kind of kept the momentum rolling for her. She gets points, she gets rebounds, she'll steal the ball, she can facilitate. She's kind of an all-around really good player. She's an emotional leader as well. You see her out there, and she brings the intensity, really just raises, I think, the level of attention and the mood that they all have out there. So I think if anybody, it's going to be Coy Love that I would choose as an X factor.
Do you look ahead now? Because obviously, if Arizona were to win, there's a good chance that they would probably play North Carolina. How much does the big dog look ahead to that following game, or does the big dog stay in his lane and say, you know what, one game at a time for Brody Dryden?
Hey, I'm just like Coach Barnes. She's the leader, and you take it one game at a time. But it's hard not to look a little bit ahead and take a peek, because North Carolina really is a good team, and they have a similar record as Arizona, and they've got a lot of wins, not a lot of losses. And in the net rankings, if I'm not mistaken, they're number 7 in the net rankings, which is incredibly, impressive. And in this region, it's the Greensboro region. The opening round is in Tucson because Arizona is hosting, but it's going out to Greensboro, North Carolina, which is not very far from Chapel Hill. And so I think North Carolina is going to come in kind of motivated, because if they got a Sweet 16 essential host ability because they're so close to their hometown in the next round, that's going to be a big motivating factor for them. They're out of a really good conference, a really good team, and they'd likely be facing South Carolina as well. So a little North Carolina, South Carolina potential matchup, but obviously Arizona's going to try their best and not to let that happen.
Okay. So again, got about got a few minutes left here. Again, I want to remind you about the DraftKings Sportsbook app. By the way, DraftKings right here. This is the hat. I rocked it all day. I wore a Back the A t-shirt in Las Vegas, and I had a DraftKings Sportsbook app. I was essentially a walking billboard all the way around. Nobody asked me about it, but you know what? I did what I can. Maybe it's because I'm not quite as tall as the big dog right there. So you know what? Maybe it's that they didn't. Maybe it's that they didn't see Brody. But you can't question my lack of effort, and that's where the DraftKings Sportsbook app comes in. Code word PHNX. Throw down $5. If your team wins, you get $200 in free plays. New customers only. All right, Brody. Now, before we sign off here, where can they find you tonight? Where can they find the broadcast coming up? And well, let's get you to answer those two first, and then we can do it with a follow-up question.
Sure, yeah. So tonight we'll be out at Floors Market Run, 6th Street and Tucson Boulevard, the former Rincon Market. It's now Floors Market Run. We're doing our final Adia Barnes radio show.
It's beautiful in there, by the way.
Oh, it's awesome. Such a cool atmosphere. They really do have great food, good drinks. They've got a whole coffee bar and actual bar. Good beer selection, all that good stuff. So make sure to come out. We'll be there from 6 to 7. Make sure to get there a little bit early, because I'm not going to lie, most times when I show up, there are already fans kind of camping there at their table to get a good spot. So if you want a good spot, get there early. Are
they there for you or Adia, or maybe a combination of both?
They're more for me than anything. I definitely have a big faction of fans that just go out to support me. And then the game broadcast, of course, is going to be Saturday tip off at about 7. We'll be on at around 6:45. Again, 1400 KTUC for that one.
All right, I'm going to be in San Diego, but you know what? Covering the men. But guess what? Assuming the women win. Need that to happen there, Brody. I'll be back there on assignment covering the women's game Monday with obviously maybe I'll try to sit behind the big dog. Well, actually, that'd be a bad idea because I wouldn't be able to see the court then.
No,
but
you wouldn't.
I certainly wouldn't. All right, Brody, before we sign off here, just for the average fan there that maybe hasn't watched the team a ton, what is something to just look for during this Arizona UNLV game, maybe beyond what we just talked about? Just something that, is a good sign for Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is just, a fun team to watch. And it's a team that's going to be playing for a lot. I mean, it's Sam Thomas in her final games here in an Arizona uniform, and how much she's meant to the community, to the university. The team feels that it's going to be great, having these couple games in Tucson. So the energy will be there. The community will be behind her. And, this is just a fun, experienced team. There's a lot going on here, a lot that this team has worked through. And again, I don't know for sure. We'll find out a little bit more. I'll be talking with Arizona head coach Adia Barnes tonight on the radio show about what's all been happening and stuff. But I think this kind of prolonged break since the Pac-12 tournament could have really helped, just a little pause and then getting back at it in the NCAA tournament. So a real fun team. It's been quite the journey. So make sure to tune in. Speaking of
real fun journeys, there's a lot of bandwagon fans out there. People that, they catch on. A lot of lifelong Georgia football fans out there. You know who I'm talking about. One guy I've got to give a lot of credit to that is not a bandwagon fan, that is a very unique fan, and that is my guy right here, Brody Dryden. Now, you might say, Mike, what team does Brody root for? Brody roots for the Raptors. Brody roots, and I can vouch for this. When Brody and I were working at the radio station together, very fun times working there with the big dog. He came in, he was a Raptors fan, and I thought it was kind of cute. And one of our first conversations, I remember him saying, I said, Brody, who do you like to win the championship? And everybody's saying the Warriors or, whoever it may be. Brody said, oh, I rep the Raptors. And Mike Luke, being short-sighted, short individual that he is, kind of rolled his eyes.
Very short.
Yes, very short, very short-sighted. Not sure which one's shorter. But, and Brody and I are hosting during the summer. And once, and then the season kept going and the Raptors kept winning. And I'm watching the 76ers game. Where with Kawhi Leonard and obviously against the Sixers. And when Leonard made that shot to go to the finals, they're going off to play, obviously, the Warriors. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this kid knows something right here because this team is going to win the championship. And nobody was saying that. So, again, tip of the cap. I watched your team last night. And They're playing really good ball. I don't expect them to win the title this year. But, Brody, I got to give you a lot of credit on that one, my man. You backed the Raptors to the fullest. Good work. So that jersey over Brody's left shoulder, that does it say Dryden on there?
It does. It does. A nice little don't tell Adam Silver. It is not an officially licensed Raptors jersey, but that's a little memento from the old college house with my roommates.
Adam, we assume you're probably not listening now, but we know that you're getting the download later on today.
Yes,
so you know what?
Exactly.
Some things are better heard, not seen there, Brody. But on a serious note, my man, I can't thank you enough. Keep doing what you're doing. Like you're one of the best in the biz and guy that just keep doing your thing and everything's going to work out, my man.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I told you and Kev that you got to believe in Danny Green. He was the difference in that Raptors team. It was Kawhi Leonard's team, but it was Danny Green that really.
No, Brody, you're minimizing another player in there that we talked a lot about.
Jeremy Lin?
No.
Fred VanVleet?
No, we must have talked about this guy every single day for about 30 minutes. His name begins with P. Pascal
Siakam, of course. I mean, he was. Well, that's what makes a championship team a championship team. There were so many, great glue guys.
Brody, I'm the old timer here, not you. I shouldn't be the one remembering that, my man.
I know. You're right. How could I forget? Yeah, appreciate you, Mike.
All right, real quick before we sign off, where can they catch you tonight? Oh, and again, Coyote Brody. You need to do a better job of putting that out there. We're Coyote Brody on Twitter. And again, real quick, where can they find you tonight?
Yep, tonight, Flores Market Run. We'll be there from 6 to 7 for the Adia Barnes radio show. Get there early, order some food, order some drinks. We'll be talking Arizona women's hoops, previewing the Arizona UNLV game. You can ask questions for Coach Barnes. Hey, maybe the whole team came last week. I don't know if the whole team is coming again this week, but maybe we'll see a player or two at least come on down as well. So always a good time.
My guy, Big Dog, we'll check in with you next week, but as always, appreciate your time, homie.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, you've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.